So we are here today with Claire Ball, the Libertarian candidate for Comptroller. We appreciate your being here today and invite you to start by providing an opening statement as to why you are running for this office and why you think you're the best candidate.
Right. Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the time. My name is Claire Ball. I am the Libertarian candidate for running for State Comptroller. And the reason that I'm running is that in the just about 200-year history of Illinois, we have never had an accountant or anyone with any financial background actually in the office of the Comptroller. This is important because this office is responsible for financial reporting and payment authorization for the state. It is, in essence, the accounting department for the state of Illinois, and it has been run by people who've had political ambitions. It's been used as a political reward or a stepping stone, and I want to see it being used as what it's meant for, which is the proper, stewardship of our state finances. I'm an accountant. I've got my background is in accounting and finance. I've got a bachelor's, master's degrees in accounting and finance. I have my CPA, and I've got over 12 years experience in accounting and finance. And what I want to do is bring the role back to what it should be, which is a nonpartisan, just the accounting department for the state. It should be reporting honestly and accurately the state of the state finances with no political bias, no just honest and accurate reporting, and just go from there. And we're just going to stop my statement right there since I've run out of steam.
All right, very good. So this is your second run for Comptroller. You ran into 2016, also as running as a Libertarian. What made you decide to go for a second time?
For a second time? Well, it pretty much the same reason that I ran for it the first time was that the research that I've done, the reason I ran in 16 was because I was doing research and helping out with Julie Fox's campaign. She was our Comptroller candidate in 2014. And the more research I did on the state of Illinois and how our finances are looked at and how they're reported, the more upset I got by it, the more angry that I was. We release our financial statements late every single year, our financial reporting, and that impacts people who are interested in buying our bonds, businesses who might be looking to come to Illinois. If we cannot report out timely and accurately what's going on with the state, then how can they take us seriously as a viable option? And so the more research that I did, the more I felt that, no, we need someone who is looking to run to do the job of State Comptroller and not to further any political careers or continue the two-party power plays that go on that we see so often in Illinois.
Okay. How would you rate the job of the current Comptroller, Susana Mendoza?
How would I rate it? I really do like the Debt Transparency Act. I think that was a good piece of legislation. As an accountant, when you're dealing with finances, and especially in Illinois, you need to know what bills are floating out there. What I don't like is all of the partisanship that I see. I see a lot of talk against our current governor, and that's all fine and well. When someone's doing something wrong, you should call them out on it, but not exclusively that party or that person. I would like to see more research done into the state as a whole. We have a lot of different problems. We have a lot of areas where the finances are just abysmal if you look at some of our local municipalities, and those are areas where the Comptroller's office can and should be focusing on.
In what capacity do you see the Comptroller? I mean, I know she collects, or that office collects the reports. Mm-hmm. In what area could that office be of assistance to these municipalities?
A couple of different ways. Well, the comptroller collects the financial reports, but then if they're not correct, the comptroller can kick them back. The comptroller's office should be reviewing these reports more. I've spoken with several different just personal one-on-one talks with a couple of CPAs, one out of Springfield, another one out of Canton, Illinois, and both have told me that they were contracted with the local municipalities in order to get their financial reports correct and submitted up to the state. And when there are questions, when there have been issues, they haven't been getting any kind of feedback. So the Office of the Comptroller should be there to be a resource for the more local municipalities, should be able to offer them, assistance in here's how to fill your reports out if you suspect there are issues going on in your department, and you're not sure who to turn to. You should be able to go up to the comptroller. I mean, it's basically the CFO of the state, and so for finances and financial related issues, you should be able to go to that person to get direction. And I think the focus needs to be turned more towards helping out the municipalities in that regard. I also think that the office should focus more on getting the financial reports out on time. As I said in my opening statement, being chronically late makes us look very bad to the rest of the nation, and also to the credit rating agencies. We're already on shaky ground, having the worst bond rating in the nation, and the more that we can show that we are serious about turning our financial situation around, one of those ways being getting the reports out on time, the better that puts us in their eyes.
Okay. I was on your campaign website, and you had on there that you're running on the FIT agenda. Yeah. So if you could kind of explain broadly what the FIT agenda is, then we'll kind of take each part individually from there.
Sure. The FIT agenda is it's pretty. It's a fun little acronym, but it's financial responsibility, integrity, and transparency. Basically, the three fundamentals that I want to bring to the Office of the Comptroller. I want to bring more financial responsibility. I want to bring another level of integrity or independence, if you will. And I'd like to bring more transparency, because the level of transparency that I see there is lacking. And I say this as an accountant and as someone who's lived in Illinois, since I was 8 years old.
Okay. So let's start then, taking them individually, starting with F. You said fiscal responsibility. Mm-hmm. On your campaign website, you said you would lead by example and cut the comptroller's office budget. Where would you cut it?
That's a good question. From reviewing part of the I don't have a definite answer for that, but the reason is I've looked into the budgets that are available online, and so far, the 2015 budget, FY15's budget, the one that was enacted before the whole stalemate, that one was made up 78% of just personal services.
In the comptroller's?
In the comptroller's budget, yes, the comptroller's budget specifically. It was made up 78% where the descriptor given was just personal services. So I was not able to find any further detail into what that actually, what does that mean? What type of personal services? And so basically what I would do is I would come in and look at the comptroller's budget and look at, where are we duplicating services? Where are we, can we use our time and energy and our people more efficiently? I would really like to see us, the comptroller's budget, I would like to see us sharing services with the treasurer's office, because I think that even though the offices are split, there's nothing that says they can't go ahead and start sharing services now and start saving money. So that would be one area that I'd look at right away. But another thing that I'd like to do going forward is I want there to be detail into the comptroller's budget. I want people to be able to see and know, here's where every dollar is going. This category, this category, this category. I want that level of detail because it's taxpayer money, and everyone should know exactly where it's going beyond personal services.
Okay. Where do you see that the treasurer and the comptroller's office can share services?
I would think in just day-to-day operations, and this is coming from an outsider's perspective. But just day-to-day operations, I don't see why lower-level personnel can't share some of the same administrative responsibilities. You know, they can share the same printers, the same office space. There are a lot of similarities between the Treasurer's office and the Comptroller's office in regards to they both are working on financial-related items. They're both non-legislative roles. You know, they're administrative. So, you know, I would just look at wherever we can combine our people. But, you know, also keeping in mind that specific duties are housed on, you know, by specific people. So you can't have someone who's a data clerk, you know, reviewing financial statements. It's not really going to work.
I had this later, but I'll jump to it now since we're talking about it. Do you think the Comptroller and Treasurer's offices should be combined?
I don't, and that
Really?
actually puts me. I'm actually the outsider on that point. But let me explain why. I don't believe that the offices should be combined. Firstly, from an accounting perspective, in accounting, in any good accounting department, there are three main areas that you want to keep segregated in order to keep the risks of fraud low. That being record keeping, authorization, and custody of assets. In Illinois, we already have record keeping and authorization. Those reside with the Comptroller. The custody of assets, actually holding the money, that resides with the Treasurer's office. And I don't think that in Illinois, with how many of our elected officials have gone to jail, I don't want to see that important check and balance between the two go away. The whole reason the office was created was due to fraud from the Auditor of Public Accounts, Orville Hodge, back in the 50s. And since then, we've seen other examples at lower levels. We've got Rita Crundwell out of Dixon, Illinois. There's the treasurer out of Ziegler, Illinois. He was recently indicted. He's going to serve 4 years for stealing, I think it was $400,000. And so these are just two examples of lower level people who held, you know, the whole ball of wax when it comes to accounting, and they were able to get away with this, with perpetuating a fraud. So, from an accounting perspective, that's my first reason for why I don't want to see them combined. Second reason is this will you're basically eliminating one voice of the people, because you are going to be eliminating either the elected role of treasurer or comptroller, and you know that those responsibilities are not going to get folded entirely into the remaining officer. They're going to delegate them down. There's going to be a deputy to whomever, you know, one or two appointed roles. And I like to see, you know, more elected roles, less appointed roles, because, you know, it should be who the people want in charge and not the politicians.
Okay. Going back to the FIT agenda under fiscal responsibility, is there anything else in particular you've got your eye on there that you'd want to implement?
I'd also like to audit the lower levels. I'd also like to look at the budgets of the other constitutional offices. Now, obviously, the Comptroller's office has no say in their budgets, but I'd like to, you know, what I would do is I would just take a look at their budgets and propose, hey, here's areas where coming from a financial perspective, see areas where you could cut. And I think bringing those things to light when it's coming from an unbiased place, this is purely talking financials, you're going to see, I'd like to hold their feet to the fire, if you will, and just say, hey, here's a bunch of areas where I see where you can cut. Do you agree? If you don't, why not? If you have a perfectly rational reason for keeping, you know, for that expense, that's perfectly fine. But we need to start justifying every expense in Illinois. I mean, we don't have the money to be able to be wishy-washy about the budgets anymore.
As you noted, money in Illinois is tough. Typically, our lawmakers spend more than they take in. One of the main struggles the Comptroller's office has had in recent years is the backlog of bills. More bills, and there's money to pay them. Reached an all-time high of unpaid bills of $16 billion. The office has basically been a triage center. How would you prioritize what bills are paid first? Because while the backlog is down, it's still in the billions.
Oh, yeah, and it's not pretty. The way that I would prioritize is I want to establish a table of priority that lists out in times of crunch, which in Illinois is always, who's going to get paid first, and most importantly, why. At the top of that list, and my criteria would start with who has the greatest need that has the least amount of other resources to be able to get by until they can get paid. So social service providers, elderly care, would be the top of the list. And then I'd look at small businesses, schools, just those entities that depend almost solely on government funding. They would get top priority. And bottom of the list would be state and lawmaker pay, because I feel that if part of your job is to work with the governor and to put together and pass a balanced budget, and you're not doing that, and the budgets that you do pass are unbalanced, as we just discovered from our latest bond issuance, that the budget that was just passed that they touted as being balanced is actually $1.2 billion unbalanced. That shouldn't fly, especially not with where the state of Illinois is, and this has been happening over years. I would also publish this table of priorities, so that everyone knows and everyone can see, for two reasons. One, to give the people of Illinois some accountability to the Comptroller. When we deviate from that schedule, we need to explain that. You always should explain it. And you may have perfectly valid reasons for bumping someone up ahead of the line. That's fine. If you can't explain it, then you probably shouldn't have done it. The other reason is that will provide a small level of comfort to those vendors that are waiting for payment. If they can at least somewhat estimate on, okay, I'm this far in the queue, I should be getting paid around then, they can make other plans. It allows them to be able to give some definites to people that they may be going forward to get debt in order to survive until they get paid.
Okay. Just going back really quick, you said you would put state and lawmaker pay toward the bottom. The courts have ruled you can't really do that. They've got to get paid.
Well, they've got to get paid, yes. No, court mandated payments, yes.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to go against the law.
Okay.
We have a lot of payments. This is talking about the pool of resources that the Comptroller has after all of these state mandated payments, all the court orders, all the things that we must pay.
Okay.
I would advocate, though, for state lawmakers to get their pay bumped to the back. While I understand that we're all working hard for the state of Illinois, if you're not doing your job, if a lot of these lawmakers use that same methodology in an everyday job, they wouldn't be there for very long.
Okay. Would you have advocated borrowing to pay down some of the backlog bills, which is what did happen in the last year?
Yes and no, and here's why. While I agree that issuing bonds that charge a lower amount of interest to pay down higher level interest, while that can work, ultimately, I would say no. I would not advocate for it, because in Illinois, we've done that. We've done that over the years. We floated, I think it was $10 billion in bonds back in the early 2000s to pay down our pension costs at that time. And, the idea being, we'll get them paid down and then we'll be able to stay caught up. That didn't happen. In Illinois, what I see happening with this current bond issuance is it's only going to get added to our bill backlog in maybe 2 years, in 3 years. You can't borrow if you're not going to, you can't borrow to pay down debt if you don't then make changes to how you are financing things and how you are spending. We need to focus on how we are spending in Illinois and change that. And only once we do that and we make some fundamental changes to how they budget and to and bringing it down to real dollars, only then could I see something like issuing bonds to pay down debt actually, not making the problem worse in the future.
Okay. So the next part of your FIT agenda is integrity. Explain to us what you mean when you say this.
Integrity. I kind of lump integrity with independence, kind of put them together. And what I mean by that is, in Illinois politics, people like to say one thing, but then they do another. We've seen it, year in, year out. I want to bring a level of integrity to the Comptroller's office, as in, I'm looking to do the job of Comptroller. I'm not interested in starting some big, long political career. I'm not interested in being governor in 4 years. I want to do the job of Comptroller. I want the financial reports out on time. I want the reporting to be transparent. I want it to make so much sense that nobody ever has to wonder why this vendor's getting paid over that vendor, why we're at a structural deficit here, or why we've got a surplus there. And that's why I'm running, and that's and why it's coupled with independence is I don't care what letter follows your name. I care about what you're doing in the state of Illinois. So if you're playing games with our money, I will call you out on it. I don't care if you're Republican. I don't care if you're Democrat. And that drives my decisions. My decisions will be coming from an objective perspective always. It's going to be based on, is this the right move for Illinois? If it's not, speak out against it. If it is, great, praise it. Let's do it. And that is a level of integrity, a level of independence that you're not going to see from the other two sides. They can say that they'll be independent, but they're still, they are part of that party. I'm an outsider. Libertarian, I'm coming in. Libertarians are exactly the kind of people that you want in charge of your finances, because they're not going to care which side is in charge. They're going to care about what's happening. And, that's the level of integrity that I'm going to bring. And, I'd like to say that I'm the only one that can actually bring that.
Okay. You said that you would not be interested in turning this into a long political career, run for governor. Are you in favor of term limits then for statewide constitutional offices?
I am in Illinois, which is a little bit at odds as a libertarian, because libertarians, we believe that, if the people like what someone's doing, they should go ahead and elect that person. I normally am for the people deciding who they want. But in Illinois, it's kind of like when you've got a couple of kids and they're playing with a bunch of toys and they break them. At some point, you have to take it away and say, all right, you've lost this privilege. And I feel that in Illinois, too many people have been in politics for too long, and we need to bring in some new blood. We need to bring in new people into these roles. And I've heard it said that, but if you've got someone with a lot of good experience, they're going to leave. They're going to take that experience with them. A good leader will train those around them, and will make that department so that they can leave, and so that the knowledge stays where it needs to, and so that the next people coming in, can start with the right foot forward and go from there. So,
what do you think is a reasonable amount of time to serve as a representative or a statewide constitutional officer?
I tend to go for the 2 terms, but I'd be open to 3 terms. I would need to see. I'd like to see some of the career politicians moving on to other things, and see that happen first, and maybe then we'll talk about 3 terms.
Okay. The final part of your agenda is transparency. Do you think transparency is lacking in the Comptroller's office?
Yes.
In what ways?
Yes, I do. I've dug around on the Comptroller's website. Every time I try to run to see the vendors and who's getting paid, the website crashes. But beyond that, what data is available on the website is not. It's not to the level of detail that I, as an accountant, want to see. You can see who gets paid. You can see when they got paid and how much they got paid. You can't really see more beyond that. In a good accounting department, you should be able to see You should be able to see, get to copies of invoices. You should be able to see the approval process. Who approved this invoice? How long was it in the approval? How long was it in process before it got paid out? And then, so that's what I'd like to see more transparency-wise on the payment side. When it comes to the financial reporting, beyond getting the finances out on time, I want in Illinois there to be some budgeted to actual reports. I would like there to be some accountability between here's what the budget says you were going to spend, here's what you actually spent. And you can do that quarterly. I mean, that companies do that now. We issue them quarterly. There's a lot of ad hoc reports that you can do as well. This is the state. It's a lot bigger entity, but that doesn't mean we can't make it happen. And we don't need any kind of constitutional amendments to do that in the Comptroller's office. This is the type of a financial report that you could just have available for people. Hey, every quarter, would you like to see how your elected officials are doing, budgeted to actual? Those are the kinds of things that I think if the Comptroller focuses more on, then you would see a lot more accountability measures coming out. Because what does that do? Besides giving people just the knowledge of here's where the spending is, well, now they can say, all right, you guys are blowing way out of your budget. Why? What's going on? You can start asking your elected officials, why are you spending so much more? And again, like anything else, if it's a good, valid, approved cost, fine. But you should have a good reason for it. And if you don't have a good reason for it, you probably shouldn't have done it.
Okay. I don't know this for sure, but I would guess maybe some of those details you're wanting are not on there due to staff limitations. So how would you ensure that you can get that level of detail on there if say, you only had a certain amount of money to work with?
Well, part of it involves upgrading the IT, which everybody's talking about now. That's actually been going on for several years. And I think I think upgrading the technology for the state is very important. I worked for U.S. Cellular. I was in their accounting department for a while. And just as a user of any kind of technology, if you're using something that's old and outdated, there's the risk that that the system's going to crash. You're going to lose the data. There's risks of them being corrupted. There's the risks of fraud of people coming in and stealing the data. And in Illinois, we've got everybody's information out here. So I think it's really important to have upgraded IT. It's happening now. It's been approved and appropriated for. It's ongoing. I would just continue to push for that. And then beyond that, I think that when working with the treasurer's office in combining services, I think that if you depending on how many people we wind up with, you could dedicate one or two people to strictly data mining and working on that on the IT side. A big industry. Or I should say a big, what do I want to say? Losing my train of thought. Sorry. Okay. In the accounting world, a big boon for the accounting industry are those individuals who have an accounting background and an IT background, because those two things work hand in hand. And so I think having a couple people on board like that, you could just would help them. They could work on these types of things while we're upgrading the IT. Okay,
very good. Some of the reforms that you would be talking about would probably need legislative approval from the General Assembly. One of the ones you noted that you did like that Susana Mendoza has done was the Debt Transparency Act that required legislative approval. So how would you go about building support for your priorities in the General Assembly?
The same way that I would build support for an idea, in the company that I'm working for. You reach out to people and you talk to them and you share your idea with them. And if they think it makes sense, when you're talking financials and you're talking about things that are for the betterment of the people of Illinois, I can't see anyone objecting to measures that are logical, that are reasonable, and that are for the betterment of the people of Illinois. So, like I said, I'm not looking to form political coalitions. I'm just looking to go out there and form relationships with people, because that's who we have working in our government. And when you're talking comptroller and you take politics out of the equation, you're just your people and you're sharing ideas.
Okay. Is there anything else you would want voters to know about you that we haven't discussed here today?
We've talked a lot. I just want them to know that I am the only person running that has a financial background. I am the only person running that is looking to strictly do the job of comptroller. You're not going to see me floating the idea of running for mayor. You're not going to see me running for Congress. You're not going to see me in the House, in the representatives. I'm looking to do the job of state comptroller in Illinois with our financial situation, where we've got people going out the door, where our debt, where our pension costs just keep exploding. We need real financial responsibility, and to do that, you want to send a clear signal to your lawmakers and your politicians out there. Then elect the accountant, the third party, the Libertarian, as your state comptroller. That sends a clear message that we don't care about the politics anymore. We want our state to improve. Let's start by putting someone in there who's driven financially instead of politically.
Okay. Well, we thank you, Claire, for being with us today. If there's anything else you'd want to say in closing, we invite you to do that.
Thank you so much for having me and for considering me. If anyone would like to read further on me, they can go to claireballforillinois.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter, and I look forward to hearing from all of you guys and all your readers.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.